Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Seipel with Pacific Workplaces. Thanks for attending today's webinar that we're hosting specifically for our broker community. Our main speaker today is Laurent Dhollande. And just for a little background info on Laurent, he is the CEO of Pacific Workplaces, which he co-founded in 2003, and also the CEO of CloudVO, an online provider of workplace solutions with a network of 850 locations worldwide. Prior to that, Laurent was an executive in large high-tech firms here in Silicon Valley, including as a corporate real estate executive with several firms. He holds an MBA from the Haas School at UC Berkeley. Good morning, Laurent.
Hey, hi, Kim.
Hi.
Thank you for the intro. You know, I'm going to start pretty slow because I see quite a few participants joining and this is great. It's great to see a bunch of people that are members of the brokerage communities that have an interest in Pacific Workplaces. And the goal here is really to also give you an education of what's going on in our industry and how you can make money, how you can generate commissions in an environment which, to say the least, is a little bit challenging for many of you guys. So we make work better. That's our tagline. That's what you'll see on the homepage of our website. And in fact, this is Kim over here in one of those many pictures that rotate in the website. So thank you, Kim, for moderating this discussion. I will explain the significance of this cute little dog with a mask a little bit later. And here we have a few pictures of some of our location. What I want to do today is talk at some point about a very interesting webinar we had a couple of months ago about corporate demand to flexible office spaces, and Pacific Workplaces being part of that. We had Mark Golan as the corporate VP of Real Estate and Development at Google that was our featured speaker, and Mark knows the Pacific Workplace very well as a video appearance by Mark Zuckerberg. And we shared and discussed an excerpt of this his 1 hour video that he had shared at his all hands meeting about remote work, and we'll talk about it and the implication that it has in our business model and in your work as a broker. So very briefly, what are flexible office spaces? It's a space that is furnished, that is private, or that has private offices, and sometimes often open co-working area that is professionally staffed with flexible terms or no terms, like months to months, and corporate ready, because the corporate demand is really exploding and did before COVID, and it's going to be accelerating because of COVID. So just a brief history. This industry is quite different from the old executive suite industry from the 80s that morphed into a service space industries with Regus as the most prominent company in the 90s that also called themselves business centers. But today we're talking about on-demand offices, we're talking about co-working. Certainly WeWork has been putting the term co-working on the map. We're talking about shared office space, we're talking about flexible office space, and all those terms are very close to one another, and Pacific Workplaces use them all. So that's what we're talking about when I talk about the flexible office space industry. So let's talk briefly about Pacific Workplaces. We started the company in 2003, and we have been always profitable every year. I don't know that I will be able to say the same thing about 2020, but we did survive 2 recessions in the early 2000s, and certainly the big recession 12 years ago. 18 locations, you know, we're a regional player. And in the Bay Area, we cover anywhere between Santa Cruz to Marin County in Larkspur, and then, you know, Sacramento all the way to Reno, which in many respects is looking more and more as an extension of the Bay Area, with so many relocation taking place to Reno. And somehow we have an outpost in Bakersfield. Okay, we have in Northern California a very similar geographical coverage as Regis in terms of number of cities. They have more location than we do because, for example, in San Francisco, now I forgot, I think they have 6 or 8 locations and we have just 1. But in terms of the full coverage is very similar, which means that we have a much broader coverage than, let's say, WeWork that is only in San Francisco, Marin County, San Jose, and maybe another place or two, but does not have the same coverage. And we are super sensitive to sanitation, social distancing, mask wearing, this kind of stuff. You can find it on our website, on the homepage, top left corner. Our health and safety policy, very important. Corporate users pay a lot of attention to that. And it's on every single web page of our website. You can see the same link. And the significance of this cute dog with a with a mask is that we want to outperform, right? We want to do more than CDC or health regulation entities. We want to outperform to provide an environment to our users which is at least as safe, if not safer, as home, and which is enterprise ready. Because certainly our large corporate customers care a great deal about where they send their employees. So who use specific workplaces? Pretty much everyone, ranging from freelancers, solo attorneys, entrepreneurs to startups, but also regional firms, national firms, international firms. 29% of our members describe themselves as being part of an international or a national firms. What industry? It's very diverse. Now, of course, we are in Silicon Valley. So most of it, I mean, the majority are high-tech related company, 23%, but we still have a lot of attorneys, 21%, and everybody else that it's a very diverse background, from consulting to accounting to health providers to staffing and many others. The proportion of attorneys is actually has been decreasing over the years. But other than that, it's very, very diverse. What are the main trends that you need to be aware of, and certainly that affect us, is a trend towards distributed workforce. That started to happen before COVID-19. It's but that trend has been greatly accelerated because COVID-19. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. But I'm sure you have heard a lot of statements made by a lot of high-tech companies and non-high-tech companies towards supporting work from home, not just because they have to due to COVID-19, but also because they discover it can be done, and there would be much more of an opportunity for people in these companies to work remotely. So we do support work from home, and that trend is definitely going to benefit our industry, benefit Pacific Workplaces and our sister company, CloudVio, tremendously. And the reason it's because as people work from home, not everybody can work from home. Not everybody has the infrastructure to work from home, right? When the kitchen table doesn't do it anymore, checking into a nearby flexible office space like Pacific Workplaces and others becomes an extension of home, becomes a social place to do work, and yet without having to commute 2 hours to the corporate campus. So we saw that trend before COVID-19, we see that trend during COVID-19 as people are getting crazy working from home. And we are talking to Google, we're talking to Facebook, we're talking to Twitter and many other companies about providing our network, our regional network, as well as our nationwide US-wide network, which I will describe a little bit later, as a support, an extension to work from home. But in order to really cater to that demand in a way that is safe, that's why we perform extreme sanitation, de-densification, pay a lot of attention to traffic in our centers, and we'll continue to do so until there's a vaccine and COVID-19 is behind us, which nobody expects to be for many, many months, okay? So let's talk about that trend that existed before COVID-19 and is greatly accelerated. So many of you may have seen that comments by James Gorman, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, in the very early days of the confinement. This was on March 9, just 2 or 3 weeks after they started to be confined to their homes. That's a quote: "With 90% of our employees working at home, we have had almost no issues." And that was a surprise because Morgan Stanley was not known as a company that was warm and fuzzy about remote work. But they discovered in the process that they learn it can be done. Their employees and the company learn it can be done. And you've seen so many other comments from many CEOs, certainly in the Bay Area, Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, we're going to talk about it. More recently, Google that made a statement just a couple of days ago that they do expect people to stay home or not come back to the office until at least July. And I'm going to share with you what Mark Golan, again, VP of Real Estate and Development at Google, shared with us in the webinar we hosted on corporate demand a couple of months ago. We also shared that video that is quite famous now of Mark Zuckerberg all hands meeting of May 20th, where he shared some data having to do with an employee survey that essentially said this, that 50% of the Facebook employee wanted to go back to work in a full-time office space at Facebook. But 40% were either somewhat interested or extremely interested to continue to work remotely from home, or a combination of home and going back to the corporate campus. But what's also interesting is that in this employee survey, 45% of Facebook employees said that they would relocate if they could work remotely. And what's interesting is that the higher you are in the level of seniority in the company, the more you'd like to relocate. And these are the people that are the most critical to Facebook or to Google or to any high-tech players, which is the senior people. They also tend to be the older people with a family. So if you put those things together, including the fact that Mark said that he expects that 50% of Facebook employees would work remotely in 5 years or more, that means dramatic changes to what you could expect the office landscape to look like in the future. Okay, so you've heard that before, probably. You've heard it from many prominent corporate users. And what it means to us to our industry, and I think you need to understand that dynamic because you will have a role to play in all of this, is that pre-COVID-19, the flexible office space, which we represent here, actually grew very fast, to being a $25, $30 billion industry, growing 20, 25% year in, year out the last 5+ years, but still represented only 4% of the commercial office space in the US. Work from home was nothing new. Teleworking started, 25 years ago, never really took off for reasons having to do with the technology, having to do with the lack of social issues, people working from home, feeling lonely and disconnected. But all of those things are changing with technology, with Zoom rooms, with Zoom meetings, with internet bandwidth that you can have at home. But of course, during the confinement, all of these people moved from the corporate core hubs, the flexible office space, they all moved to home, right? And you can break them down in 3 broad categories. Those who loved it, those who hated it, and those that kind of liked it, but maybe not all of the time. So those who hate it cannot wait to go back to commute on, bumper to bumper on Highway 101, to go back to Menlo Park, or to go back to Mountain View. But at the same time, their companies cannot receive them, at least for the next 6 months, 12 months. So they're being pushed back to either their home, but not everybody can work from home. So that's where the nearby flexible office space has a huge role to play, to become a supplement to working from home. Again, when you need the infrastructure, you need the Zoom room, not just a Zoom meeting. You need to get away from the baby. You need to get away from the dog, the spouse sometimes. Or you're pretty young. We have a lot of young demographics here in Silicon Valley, and they share, a 2-bedroom with 3 roommates in downtown San Francisco. That's not a great place to work. So that's when they come to us. That's why Facebook, that's why Google, that's why Twitter, that's why many other locations are more interested in flexible office space than maybe they've been in the past. And that's why that is likely going to stick past COVID-19. So what does this mean for brokers? Well, that means that you need to understand the dynamic. That means that, unfortunately, the commercial office space in downtown San Francisco, for example, is probably not going to grow very fast, or not very soon. Maybe in a couple of years, things will go back to what it was, but most people here tend to think that it's going to be, I don't want to use the term new normal, but yes, it will be a new normal. So you need to anticipate that. In the short term, there will be a lot of disposition work that will be required, and that's a place where you can generate commissions. The core corporate hubs are going to go down. The core corporate hubs will be a place for transient, a place for training, a place for all hands meetings, a place for meetings that solidify the corporate culture. But like Mark Zuckerberg in his video was very clear about it. I expect 50% of employees of Facebook to work remotely, but remotely means within 2 hours of a corporate hubs, because we need you guys to go to the corporate hubs, go to the core space for training, for corporate culture. It's just not going to be a place where you have many full-time offices, with the exception of new hires, because they need to be embriagated into the culture, so to speak, because they are new to the company, and then move on. So core hubs large corporate campuses are going to go down, but satellite offices are going to go up because, again, on a regional basis, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours away from the corporate hub, there will be a need for people to check into satellite space. So in some cases, it will be a satellite space leased by the company. Certainly, Google is likely, in my opinion, to go in that direction, more so than others, because they are paranoid about security issue, probably for good reasons. Not all high-tech firms are that paranoid about security issues because the technology has evolved that provides firewalls and a number of things. So in many cases, those satellite offices may be very small and hosted by a flexible office space, like a Pacific Workplaces, like a WeWork, like a Regis. And of course, work from home is going to increase. And we think that the winning combination as it relates to work from home is going to be work from home plus crash into a nearby flexible office when you cannot do it at home. That means not necessarily have a full-time office there, but use a part-time office. So that part-time office may be a satellite office hosted by the flexible office space, but leased by Google or Facebook or Twitter. Or it could be some creative, we have products already that enable people to use what we call day offices. So think of it as a part-time office. So many credits, so many hours a month in a way that under a subscription basis, which remove the uncertainty for the corporate sponsor as far as the budget. You know, it could just be $200 or $300 per month, and their employees can check into one of our places for 20 hours of the office per month, or 50 hours, depending upon the level of services. So how do you generate commissions in all of that? Well, the first step is register at pacificworkplace.com/brokers. And if you forget about it, you can go to our website and go scroll down to the very bottom, and you will see a link for brokers. The industry commissions standard are 10% for the first year of a contract. But if you register with Pacific Workplace, you'll get 12% the first year plus 3% at the renewal. So how does that work? Most corporate contracts tend to be 12 months or more. Many contracts are 3 months renewable, and they tend to renew. So if it's just a 3 months contract, we'll pay you your commission when we receive payments on the first invoice. If it's a 12 months contract, you receive the full 12 months of commission. If it's 3 months, you will receive your commission at each renewal. And we only ask for your email address, your name, your company, and the area that you cover. You will not be inundated by emails from us, but maybe 2 or 3 times a year from the managers in your area. We're very careful about not invading your space. But once in a while, giving you a reminder that we're around and we'd like to build that relationship with you. So if you have a lead, what should you do? Just send them to your local pack manager. Who is your local pack manager? Go to the website, go to the location that is of interest to you or your client. And if you scroll down, you'll see the picture and the contact information of the relevant manager. In some cases, it's going to be an area manager that handles sales for like 3 or 4 locations. In other cases, it's going to be the community manager that is also trained to handle corporate sales. And it's very easy. A phone call or an email intro will do. And then we'll take care of the rest, and we'll keep track of the fact that you send us a referral, and we'll take care of your commission. So very, very easy, okay? And when your client comes to us, we'll treat them well. and we'll treat them well because our core value is we care. And it's not lip service because we have data to provide that we provide great customer service, like the Google reviews, you know, that you cannot play the system when you have hundreds of reviews like we have, 4.7 out of a scale of 5. It's really good, certainly a lot better than Regis at 4.3, and we work at 3.9. 3.9 is not good. And by the way, this was done by looking at the competitor's location that is the closest to a Pacific Workplace location within a 5-mile radius. So in the case of PAC, it's the total portfolio. In the case of Regis, is a section of their global portfolio that is within 5 miles of PAC, Pacific Workplaces, and if they have multiple locations, it's just the closest. So that difference is even stronger when you look at Yelp reviews. In this case, it's Regis that really doesn't do very well, but neither does WeWork. And Trustpilot, which we all use, and Trustpilot is a service that provides an automatic request for review to all clients sign 1 week after they move in, so, or they sign. So again, not too many opportunities to play the system and to have fake reviews. So that's really an objective data that is quite compelling. Unlike with Google or with Yelp, Trustpilot does not break down the reviews per location. So we are sharing here a comparison for the entire company. So how about outside of Northern California? What if your client has needs outside of the area that Pacific Workplaces can serve? Well, we have a sister company of which I'm also the CEO, Cladvio, with 850 locations worldwide, 600 of those in the US, that is there to support our corporate accounts. Not everybody can join our portfolio. These affiliates are sort of similar people in their region as Pacific Workplaces, the cream of the crop, so to speak, that satisfies certain criteria of enterprise connectivity to the internet, of being staffed and having the tools of the trade that you need in terms of meeting rooms and the equipment and this kind of stuff. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you and indicate an education on who we are. I thank you for your interest for Pacific Workplaces, and I'm very happy to entertain questions. So I actually have a few questions. I'm going to start with one that was submitted to us before the webinar, which is, what differentiates you, Pacific Workplaces, from Regis or WeWork? So I touched a little bit on that in terms of customer reviews, but it's not just that. We have been profitable for 16 years in a row. That's important. That's not something that WeWork can say, obviously. Our foundational value, as I mentioned earlier, we care, and it translates into those customer reviews. It's not just lip service. We feel it to the bones, to and that's critical, and the data tells us we are succeeding with that. And also we are a regional portfolio. So being a regional portfolio enables us to benefit from economies of scale, where we can reallocate resources. We don't have to overstaff if somebody is sick, so we can provide a very effective price because we also have a lot less overhead than Regis, for example, okay? And finally, our affiliation with Cladvio, which gives us access to a network of 850 locations worldwide. And only Regis can say the same. Only Regis can say that, and they have more locations. They have 3,000 locations worldwide. In the US, we're not too far away from where they are, by the way. And only Regis and Cladvio can say we have a quasi-ubiquitous network of location to serve our corporate clients. WeWork cannot because they are heavily concentrated on very large cities. And today, especially with COVID-19, but also post-COVID-19, suburban locations, medium-sized locations are going to matter a lot more. So Regis has a good coverage of that, and so do we. All right, so that's the answer to that question. Kim, I see another one here, and if you have others, just jump in. When do we get paid brokerage commission? I think I touched on it, but after the first invoice that our client is paid, which typically happen very, very quickly. That's when you get your first commission. Again, if it's a 12-month contract, you get 10% of the total amount of the invoice, not the security deposit, obviously. Total amount of the subscription invoice. And if it's a 3-month contract, it's just going to be those 3 months. But if the contract renew, you'll get paid at renewal. Okay. How is COVID-19? I mean, it's a long question, but essentially, how were we affected financially by COVID-19? So we've been affected, of course. Our occupancy is down, but our revenue is down by just about 20% portfolio-wide, which is better than most of our competitors. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we have a very strong virtual office business. So virtual office, think of virtual office as part-time office, and that's 30% of our revenue, which has actually grown during COVID-19, but slightly, just let's say as stabilized. That's a lot more than what Regis, WeWork, and many others have, and that work as a dampening factor in the drop of occupancy. We see slowly but surely some activities now, people coming back. Some people that canceled their subscription at the beginning of the subscription that are coming back to get an office again. But it's going slowly. We'll be fine. We'll survive. We can live through that for another year and be fine. We have locations that are hurt more than others, especially those we opened just before COVID. It's a couple of them. But then, because we expect a big inflow of corporate demand, much more so than prior to COVID-19, we think we'd be in great position to thrive again, especially in 2021. Now, the similar question, are you shrinking or growing? We are growing. We are looking for location actively right now. And there's another questions with respect to the opportunities on the tenant rep side. So we're looking for space in the Pleasanton area. That's still a hole in our Bay Area portfolio. Pleasanton, Santa Rosa. When we fill those holes, we have a complete coverage here. We may actually grow in areas where we already have a location. Reno is an example, because we expect, or we already see a lot of people moving because of the outdoors, because of the mountains, because their corporations are letting them work remotely. But by and large, like in Sacramento, we've got, I want to highlight Dan Chamberlain because he's on this webinar, that is our tenant reps and will continue to be. But we don't have any exclusivity anywhere. We'll continue to work with the people that have served us well for many years. But there are areas where we haven't been very active in the last few years, so that may create opportunities. And the best way to be on our radar screen is to work with our local managers and bring them some leads. The more you do, the more we'll establish a relationship, and the more likely we will go to you if we need a local tenant rep. Okay. Kim, any other question?
No, I think
Oh,
you've
how do we
covered it.
structure deals? How do we
Oh, yeah, I
structure deals?
forwarded you the Q&A. Yeah, it's on the Q&A box.
Yeah, so
Structure deals.
that may be the last one.
Yes.
Uh, uh, yeah, we said a half an hour. I'm just a little bit over. I apologize for that. But you know, we are an operator, so ideally we like management contracts. We like to be shielded away from the real estate risk because our job is to maximize revenue, maximize occupancy, maximize profit. We cannot always do management contracts for a number of reasons. Our landlords, which tend to be institutional landlords, maybe they are REITs, they cannot really do that. So we do have joint ventures with them that are in the spirit of, you know, transferring as much of the real estate risk as we can. We never fully shielded from it, such that we can focus on what we do best, which is to managing coworking operations. Okay, so we'd be open to anything that range from traditional lease, joint venture, and management contracts. Okay, with that, because I went over 5 minutes of the allocated time, I just want to thank all of you for your interest, and I just hope that we can work great relationship with each and every one of you, and I thank you for your participation.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you, Laurent. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kim.